Call of the Wild is yet another adaptation of the classic Jack London novel. The film tells the story of a big-hearted dog named Buck, who embarks on the journey of a lifetime when he's uprooted from his domestic life and transported to the Yukon wilderness. So how does this latest adaptation hold up? That and more coming up in the review. What's up everyone, I'm Ashley and this is Ashley Talks Movies. If you're new to the channel, welcome. Do me a favor while you're here, please hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any of my new content. And if you're a returning subscriber, welcome back. Now, on to the review. Call of the Wild is now out in theaters and it stars Harrison Ford, Karen Gillan, Omar, Bradley Whitford, and Dan Stevens. And it's the latest film to be released from the recently rebranded 20th Century Studios. Disney famously purchased the studio from Fox last year and has since removed the Fox branding. So yes, technically Call of the Wild is a Disney film. And it definitely goes after the key demographic that Disney always targets, which is families. But Call of the Wild tries way too hard to tap into that feel-good family film genre. Instead, with many parts coming off really hokey and cheesy at times. Best example, or should I say the worst example, is Dan Stevens' character, which he plays this villain. And his performance is by far the worst performance of this movie. His character is so over the top and ridiculous. Honestly, I felt like he was completely unnecessary and the film would have been completely fine without him. And the supporting cast, with the exception of Omar, is pretty forgettable here. I mean, Karen Gillan's in this movie and you blink and you miss her. Bradley Whitford's in this movie and he's pretty much only in the first part of the movie. And when I say the first part, I literally mean like the first 10 minutes or so, and that's it. My biggest problem with this film would have to be the CGI dogs. The studio decided to go with CGI dogs, and it makes complete sense because obviously it eliminates the need to have to use real animals, real dogs. But the way these dogs are designed are so over the top and cartoonish, it just doesn't work. In fact, I found most of the CGI dogs and the CGI in this movie to be really, really distracting. And even at times when I felt like I was adjusting to the fact that the CGI dogs didn't really measure up with the rest of the film, there would be other instances where it would completely take me out of the film again because the CGI was so glaringly bad. The proportions of the dogs are all over the place. The angles are all over the place. They're shaped strange. There's weird shadows here and there for the dogs. I imagine they've spent a lot of money on the CGI for these dogs, and it just doesn't work at all. It also doesn't help that the dogs, particularly Buck, are given really exaggerated features. I assume it's to give them more emotion in the scenes, but to me it just came off as more cartoonish. Nothing wrong with cartoonish, except it doesn't really fit in with the rest of the movie in terms of tone. The rest of the movie is pretty grounded, but then you have Buck in particular being this really cartoonish type character. There are times where Buck appears really big and other times he appears kind of small. Again, his proportions are kind of all over the place. And I honestly feel like the weakest part of this movie was the CGI and the CGI dogs. They just take you out of the film completely. Despite its flaws, the film does manage to generate plenty of heart and charm, thanks in part to the spectacular set pieces. When you're looking at the Yukon wilderness, it looks gorgeous. The snow, the lakes, the mountains, all of it looks really, really gorgeous. And also thanks to Harrison Ford, who is pitch perfect as the grizzled John Thornton, an outdoorsman who finds Buck and befriends him, and they embark on this great journey together. Harrison Ford does a fantastic job with his performance in this film. He brings a certain realism and groundedness to his performance, and I think in a lot of ways helped elevate this movie for me. In the times where I didn't really feel like I was connecting with the other characters or even with the CGI dogs in terms of the story, when his character was there and when his character was interacting with Buck, there's a nice emotional warmth to it, and then that connection is there, and so I felt it. Kids will appreciate the CGI dogs. I think that, you know, they're funny, they're humorous, especially Buck, and they'll appreciate the journey in which this movie takes them. For the adults, though, I think if the CGI dogs are distracting like they were for me, Adults will connect to Harrison Ford's character and some of the darker, heavier themes that this movie does tap into. Overall, Call the Wild is a pretty decent film. It's not great, but it's actually good and has a lot of heart and humor. It isn't bringing anything new to the table, but it does keep the essence of Jack London's story. And so I think kids mostly will really enjoy this, and adults will enjoy it as well. All right, so that's it for my review. Let me know what you think about Call the Wild in the comments section below. While you're here, please like this review and don't forget to hit that subscribe button.